Good afternoon, guys. Thank you for being here. And Robert, I don't see you now, but thank you. I feel like it's a build-up for our presentation with very common use cases. So in the next 25 minutes, or even a little bit less, we'll share a little bit of background about WakingApp. We will share our take on AR creation. And the most important thing, Adiel will show you a live demo of our product, and we're going to create an AR training session like Robert explained here. And we're going to show it live here on stage, how we can create something rapidly and really fast. So, as you can hear, probably can hear by my accent, we are coming from Israel. Started off 5 years ago. See that my presentation a little bit changed. 5 years ago as an AR studio providing services for brands like Nestle, Domino's Pizza, Isuzu car motors, and more. Like actually lots of the exhibitors here down in this show. And every project we were working on was tailor-made for the specific campaign while using multiple third-party tool sets. Every project was very long, expensive, and complicated. Every tool set has its own business model, had its own license type, and we always got stuck with who's going to be the owner of that license. Is it going to be us? Is it going to be the customer? What's going to happen the day after the project is done? Who's going to keep paying for those licenses? And mostly, when the demand will be bigger, how are we going to be able to support all the need? Because every project takes so much time to create. At that point, the idea of ENTiTi was born, creating an AR toolset made for professionals, allowing those brands, developers, and designers to create any kind of AR content themselves without the need to be dependent on third-party tools or services, and mostly make it fast. So before I'm going to talk about a little bit about how we see it, let's see how most AR creations are done these days, AR apps, I mean. Usually it starts with choosing the right 3D engine you want to work with. We're talking about apps, it's very important to be cross-platform. Secondly, we need to find the right flavor of AR SDK. As you probably saw here, there are SLAM, which is very, very big right now. There are image tracking, there are QR tracking, and you need to find what is the right solution for your need. Third, you need to get developers that are going to create the content for you and going to do the apps for you. After that, you need to get the 3D models, like Robert said a few minutes earlier. You can buy them from AR libraries online, or you can design them from scratch with CAD softwares, or even scan them with the 3D scanners. After that, it's the usual protocol of any app. You need to submit the app to the app stores, and if you would like to update this content, you will need to get back to your developers, update it, compile a new app, and upload it, a new version to the stores. The way we see it, it's supposed to be a little bit easier. First of all, no matter what your level of coding, if you're a developer or if you're a designer, you need to have the ability to create yourself the AR content, no matter how complex or simple it is. Secondly, and this is the most important point, like you see here in the show, and I'm sure some of you have lots of experience in AR, almost all AR experiences are offered as a separated app, which is great for games or for demos like we see here in this kind of shows. What's happened when most businesses already have an app? They probably spend millions on user acquisition for those apps. Now, if they would like to implement AR, they need to send their user base to a different app. Obviously, in marketing perspective, it's a suicide. We are offering a unique SDK that can be integrated into native apps. For the ones that don't have an app, we offer to create a white label app straight from the software and upload it to the stores. The third point is also very important the way you see it. In web, we're very used to get CMS, the ability to update the content without the use of any developers and do it fast and on a daily basis. Using our publish server that I'm going to elaborate in the next slides, You can update the content on the fly all the time without the need to compile and submit a new app to the store. Let's look up a little bit about the technology that stands behind ENTiTi. So there are 4 main components that stands behind it, and I will explain. First, we decided to develop our own 3D rendering engine. Why we decided to do that? We need to have a better performance in mobile, and we need to have a better footprint. Beside that, thanks to this engine, we are able to offer this SDK that can be integrated into native apps. Our engine is in PBR standard, obviously cross-platform, and the most important thing, very small footprint, actually up to 8 megabytes. Secondly, our cloud image recognition. The ability to use the camera on the phone, on the headset, to detect a certain image out of up to 100,000 images. Or in other words, scanning an image and get the right AR experience which is attached to that image. Before SLAM was born, image and QR tracking was alive. And for some use cases, especially for marketing and print, this is still the most common use case. So we also develop our own image and QR tracking library, obviously offered cross-platform. On top of all of our technologies, we also had fully integrated with ARKit and ARCore by Apple and Google, allow us to offer SLAM-based experiences. I don't know if some of you had some experience working with it, but it's usually very complex, and the biggest problem, it's not cross-platform. So first, we make it more approachable to use it with JavaScript API or visual scripting. Before Adiel gonna show you a live demo of and create something here in live, I wanna go over the main feature of ENTiTi. So as I mentioned, 3 types of AR technologies, if we're talking about SLAM, image, or QR. Working with ENTiTi using JavaScript library or visual scripting that actually writes the JavaScript behind the scene. We want to make sure that the training manager in the enterprise, like in Siemens, for example, will be able to create the experience themselves without the need to go to developers and use them to develop this product. Third is our viewer SDK, as I mentioned, the ability to integrate into existing mobile apps or have it as a white label solution for the ones that don't have an app. The ability to update the content on the fly is thanks to our publish server that can be offered in 2 flavors. The first is a service from us for usually the simpler things, the smaller companies, and also as an open source publish server can be integrated with any hosting service or on any computer you would like. As you probably know, training in AR is one of the most common use cases. I'm sure downstairs you saw a bunch of them. We're going to show you, or Adiel going to show you, how we create a simple training session here live with our product. Adiel.
Okay. So we've ENTiTi open here, and I've opened the project we've made specifically for this occasion. In this case, it's a short training session of finding the hypothetical location of the oil tank within the car's engine. So I'll start by going through the interface. If you're familiar with modern 3D engines, you'll feel at home. On the left, you have the hierarchy panel. It shows all the objects within the scene. In this case, we have an arrow, a car, and some pages from the driver's manual. Beneath it, we have the assets panel. It shows all the assets that belong to this project, from video files, models, audio, and scenes. On the right, we have the object details panel. Simply shows the properties and components assigned to the currently selected object. So for instance, for the car, we have a transform that controls the position, orientation, and scale of the car in the AR experience. This car model also has an animation built into it and a script that we've pre-made to control the logic in this experience. Beneath that, we have the action history panel. It shows all the actions you've done on the visual editor and allows you to go back and forth in your actions. The last thing is the console. It shows the errors and messages that you're getting while simulating the project in this visual editor. Okay, so the scene is a bit dull. I'll start by adding some light to it. Pressing Scene, Create, Directional Light, playing a bit with the intensity, and rotating it, you'll see how it affects the entire scene. That said, there's a better way to add light in our system. Since it's PBR based, as Matan mentioned previously, we can just go ahead and add an environment map by pressing Environment, Set Reflection Texture, and choosing a panoramic image. You can see how it affects the entire scene's lighting and reflections. So now the car looks way better. One more thing I'd like to discuss is the UI we've built. So this experience has 3 different buttons. The first one on the right is in charge of snapping the entire scene onto the found surface. So since this is an ARKit and ARCore based project, what it does is whenever the user presses this button, it will snap it on the found surface that these algorithms use. The other button there in the middle is in charge of just rotating the car to the location you'd like to have it. And the last button on the left just goes step by step in the scenario. As you can see, we've built this UI system so it'll work on any device resolution, be it landscape or portrait. And it's very easy to use. Okay, so once I'm done with the authoring and I'd like to test something, I can just press play and it will run all my scripts and simulate the AR experience directly here. So we use the grid as if it's a found surface by ARKit and ARCore. So when I move the mouse, it will intersect with the grid and position the car there. This is something we've pre-built in this scene in JavaScript. When I press this button, as you can see, it gets snapped, rotate, and simulate it. Great, so I'm pleased with what I've made here, and I'd like to test it on the actual device. As Matan mentioned, we don't need to compile anything or run it or install it directly on the device. Only we need to do is just press Play on Device. When we got an internet connection, it will upload the entire scene directly to our cloud so that any device that runs an SDK that we have integrated into its app can run this content. Okay, let's see how it is here.
Now I'll begin the stages of the simulation. Obviously, here we made something very simple, understanding where is the oil tank in the car.
Yes, exactly.
You can see the reflections on the model itself, like Adiel just put in the skybox.
As Matan mentioned, I can go back to the experience here and change something. So I'll choose the car's paint. Let's change it so it's blue. Once I'm done again, all I need to do is press Play on Device and see how the new scene loads on the surface.
So the same thing, but now Adiel changed the color, and immediately we already see the result without the need to compile or submit something.
Okay. Last thing I want to talk about before we wrap up this presentation is personalized AR experiences. With the use of our image tracker and QR tracker, you're able to create such an experience that provides the user personalization on top of actual print. So in this case, an avatar can explain you your electricity bill step by step, and it's your electricity bill. So it's personalized with your content.